You know that feeling, don't you? Days after an argument ends, you're still replaying it. In the shower, driving to work, lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. And that's when it hits you. The perfect response. The exact words that would have ended everything. The comeback that would have left them speechless. But you didn't say it. In the moment, you froze. You got emotional. You defended yourself. You tried to explain. And because you reacted instead of responded, you lost. Here's what nobody tells you. Arguments aren't about logic. They're not about who's right or who has the better facts. We're taught from childhood that if we just explain ourselves clearly enough, if we present our case rationally, the other person will understand. That's a beautiful idea. It's also completely wrong. Arguments are about power. They're about frame control. They're about who holds the emotional high ground when the dust settles. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. He knew that human beings, despite our sophisticated language and complex societies, are not rational creatures. We're emotional, hierarchical animals. We don't automatically respect the person who's right. We respect the person who's in control. Think about the last argument you lost. Not the one where you were factually wrong, but the one where you walked away feeling defeated even though you knew you were right. What happened? You probably defended yourself. You justified your actions. Maybe you raised your voice. Maybe you got upset. You handed over your power because you were desperate to be understood. But here's the truth. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be respected. Today, we're not learning communication skills. We're not talking about healthy dialogue or active listening. Those have their place, but that's not what this is. Today, we're learning psychological warfare. We're learning how to dismantle an opponent's strategy without raising your voice. How to end arguments before they drain your energy. How to establish boundaries so clear that people think twice before crossing them. I'm going to give you 7 verbal techniques. 7 responses that don't just end arguments, they remove the other person's ability to control you. These aren't clever comebacks you'd use in a friendly debate. These are psychological circuit breakers. Tools that shift the entire power dynamic in seconds. And the 7th one. The 7th is the nuclear option. It's so dismissive, so final, that it doesn't just silence the room. It permanently changes the hierarchy of your relationship with that person. But I need to warn you, once you understand these principles, you'll never see social conflict the same way. You'll start seeing patterns in how people try to manipulate you. You'll recognize their strategies before they even finish speaking. You'll stop feeling the heat of anger and start feeling the cold clarity of control. And in that cold, you'll find your power. Let's begin. Are you okay? When someone attacks you, they're operating from a place of hidden instability. Anger is rarely about the thing they're shouting about. It's a defense mechanism covering fear, insecurity, or loss of control. When they scream at you, they want you to scream back. They want to drag you into the emotional mud. If you get angry, you validate their chaos. You're saying, yes, this situation is worth losing control over. You become their partner in the drama. Machiavelli had a principle: never fight on your enemy's terrain. So how do you win? You shift the spotlight. The moment they launch a personal attack or raise their voice, you do not defend yourself. You don't address their accusations. Instead, you address their emotional state. You look them directly in the eyes. Wait 2 seconds. Then say with genuine, soft concern, "Are you okay? You seem really upset right now." Watch what happens. It's a glitch in the matrix. They were braced for a fight. They expected resistance. Instead, you gave them pity. By asking, "Are you okay?" you've reframed everything. You're no longer the person being attacked. You've positioned yourself as the stable adult, and them as the emotional child. This destroys their momentum instantly. They can't continue attacking because you've stepped out of the role of enemy and into the role of concerned observer. If they push through saying, "Of course I'm not okay. You did X, Y, and Z," don't take the bait. Simply nod, maintain that calm gaze, and say, "I hear you, but this level of anger doesn't seem to match the situation. Is something else going on?" This is ruthless. You're forcing them to examine their own overreaction. You're making them self-conscious about their loss of control. Think about status. A king doesn't scream at a peasant. A parent doesn't scream at a toddler. The person who screams is the person who feels powerless. By calmly pointing out their emotion, you're reminding them of that powerlessness. You're holding up a mirror. What they see, a red-faced, out-of-control version of themselves, will make them want to stop. They'll lower their voice. They have to. Because if they keep screaming after you've expressed concern, they're confirming your diagnosis. They're proving they're unstable. The beauty is that it's socially acceptable. You haven't insulted them. On the surface, you're being compassionate. But underneath, you've seized complete control. You've transformed from defendant to judge in a single sentence. Practice the tone. It cannot sound sarcastic. It must sound genuinely concerned, almost clinically curious. Your face should be soft but serious. Your voice should be quiet but clear. The contrast between their volume and yours is what makes this work. They're shouting. You're almost whispering. That contrast shows everyone who's in control. That's an interesting perspective. There's a specific type of person who loves to argue for sport. The intellectual bully. The family member who brings up politics at dinner to provoke. The coworker who plays devil's advocate on everything. These people feed on friction. They need you to push back. It's basic physics. Every time you engage, you're giving them exactly what they want. Your energy, your attention, the satisfaction of getting under your skin. Machiavelli taught that one should never waste resources on battles that yield no profit. Arguing with someone who just wants to argue is a complete waste. So you cut the fuel line. When they finish their rant or drop their provocative opinion, you do not engage with the content. You don't bring up counterarguments. You don't cite facts. You don't get defensive. Instead, you look at them with a neutral expression. Not a smile. Not a frown. Just blank. And you say, "That's an interesting perspective." Then immediately go back to what you were doing. Take a sip of your drink. Check your phone. Turn to someone else. Physically and verbally move on as if nothing significant happened. You've acknowledged they spoke, but denied them significance. The phrase is a verbal coffin. It says, "I heard you. I judged it. And I found it unworthy of further discussion." It's polite on the surface but deeply dismissive. You're treating their passionate belief like a child's drawing. "That's nice, sweetie." Moving on. They'll hate this. They'll try to bait you again. "So you agree? Or do you think I'm wrong?" You repeat the wall. Same neutral tone, "I think it's a perspective and you're entitled to it." Then pivot away immediately. You are a stone wall. They can throw themselves against you all day, but they'll only break their own bones. You remain unmoved. This teaches people how to treat you. It teaches them you're not a source of emotional supply. You're not a toy that makes noise when pressed. Eventually, they'll stop trying. And being boring to a narcissist or bully is the ultimate safety. They'll move on to easier targets who still react. The key is consistency. You cannot do this once and then engage the next time. Every time they bait you, same response. After 2 or 3 times, they'll learn. They'll categorize you as someone who doesn't engage, and they'll stop trying. The power of silence. We are terrified of silence. In Western culture especially, a gap in conversation feels like a threat. It feels like social death, like something went wrong, like we failed at the basic human task of communication. So when someone insults us, asks us a trap question, or says something outrageous, our instinct is to fill the void immediately. We blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. We stutter. We defend ourselves in a rush of words. We scramble to close the gap because the tension of silence is physically uncomfortable. It creates anxiety in our chest, makes our heart rate spike, makes us feel like we're losing control. But here's what Machiavelli knew. Power lives in the gap. The prince who speaks less is feared more. Silence is not weakness. Silence is judgment. Silence is control. When someone hits you with a rude comment, a demanding question, or a blatant lie, here's what you do. Nothing. Do not answer immediately. Do not react. Look directly at them. Lock eyes. And count to 4 in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 seconds of silence during a heated moment feels like an eternity. It creates a vacuum. And nature, including human nature, abhors a vacuum. The other person's brain will start to panic. Did they hear me? Did I go too far? Why aren't they reacting? What are they thinking? Are they analyzing me? Are they judging me? Do they think I'm stupid? In that silence, you are seizing the frame. You're demonstrating that you are not reactive. You're not a puppet whose strings can be pulled with the right words. You're showing that you process information before responding, that you judge before speaking, that you're in complete control of yourself. This is deeply unsettling to people who are used to getting immediate reactions. It breaks their script. They said something designed to trigger you, and instead of triggering, you've gone completely still. It's like they fired a gun and the bullet stopped in midair. After the silence, you don't even need a clever comeback. The silence was the comeback. The silence was the message. But if you must speak, say something that puts the labor back on them. Could you repeat that? Say it slowly, calmly. No emotion in your voice whatsoever. Now they have to say the rude thing again. But this time, the momentum is gone. The heat of the moment has passed. Repeating an insult robs it of power. It sounds worse the second time. More calculated. Less justified. They'll often stutter, rephrase it to sound less harsh, or back down entirely. No, I just meant. Now they're explaining themselves to you. And here's an iron law of power dynamics. He who explains, loses. By using silence as a weapon, you force them to sit in the discomfort of their own aggression. Most people cannot handle this. They'll fill the silence with an apology, a clarification, or a retraction just to end the unbearable tension. Let me give you some practical examples of how this looks in real life. Someone says, "You're always so lazy. You never help around here." Old you. That's not true. I helped just yesterday. You never notice when I do things. New you. 2 seconds of direct eye contact. Silence. Then, calmly. Always? Never. Those are interesting choices of words. Return to what you were doing. Someone says, "If you really cared about this relationship, you'd do what I'm asking." Old you. I do care. How can you say that? I'm always doing things for you. New you. 4 seconds of silence. Unwavering eye contact. Then, I'm going to need you to explain the logic there. Wait. Let them struggle. Someone says, "Everyone thinks you're difficult to work with." Old you. Who said that? That's not true. Who's everyone? New you. 3 seconds of silence. Slight head tilt. Everyone. That's quite a specific claim. Name 2 people. Silence. Wait for the backpedal. Do you see the pattern? The silence does the heavy lifting. It creates space where their accusations hang in the air and start to sound hollow, exaggerated, manipulative. The silence forces them to hear their own words the way you hear them. You need to practice this because your instinct will fight you. Your instinct will scream at you to defend yourself, to fill the gap, to fix the social discomfort. That instinct is your enemy. That instinct is what keeps you powerless. Train yourself. Start small. When someone says something mildly annoying, pause for just 2 seconds before responding. Get comfortable with that slight tension. Then extend it. 3 seconds. 4 seconds. Learn to sit in the discomfort while maintaining steady eye contact and calm breathing. Your body language during the silence is critical. You cannot look away. You cannot fidget. You cannot look nervous or confused. You must look like you're processing their words through a very sophisticated analytical system and finding them lacking. Imagine you're a scientist observing an interesting but ultimately flawed specimen. Curious, but unmoved. Present, but detached. Master the pause. It is the sound of authority. It is the physical manifestation of self-control. And in a world full of reactive people, the person who can be still is the person who wins. You're right. This technique is verbal judo. In judo, you don't block your opponent's force. You pull them forward in the direction they're already moving, and they fall on their face. When someone attacks your character, they're expecting resistance. They're braced for you to say, "No, I'm not." And they have their next 3 responses ready. You're so lazy. You're selfish. You're being difficult. They're ready for you to defend. So don't. If someone attacks you with a subjective judgment, agree with them. You're being so difficult right now. You're right. I am being difficult. You don't care about anyone but yourself. I can see why it feels that way. Do not say it sarcastically. Say it as a simple fact. Neutral tone. Calm delivery. What can they do now? They have no next move. They swung the bat and hit nothing but air. By agreeing, you've disarmed the weapon. If you accept the label cannot shame you. This is profound. Shame only works when you're hiding something. If you openly acknowledge it, there's nothing to expose. Here's the key. You agree with the truth of the moment, not the truth of your soul. If they say you're arrogant and you say, "I can be arrogant sometimes," you're simply admitting to being human. You're taking the sting out without actually damaging your self-image. Then you pivot. You redirect to the actual issue. You're right, I am being difficult about this. Because this matters to me. So how do we solve it? See what you did. You accepted the insult, shrugged it off, and immediately pivoted back to the practical goal. You've shown your ego isn't fragile. You're focused on outcomes, not emotions. This signals immense confidence. Only someone truly secure can admit a flaw without crumbling. Insecure people defend every accusation. Secure people acknowledge imperfection because one flaw doesn't define them. More examples. You're being unreasonable. You're probably right. I am being unreasonable about my boundaries. I can live with that. Where do we go from here? You think you're so smart. I do think I'm smart, yeah. Is that the problem, or is something else bothering you? Accept, deflect, redirect. You're not defending. You're acknowledging the surface accusation and drilling down to the real issue. This works because most accusations aren't about what they claim. You're selfish usually means, you're not doing what I want. You're difficult means, you won't comply with my demands. By agreeing with the label but pivoting to the underlying issue, you're forcing an honest conversation. You're exposing the manipulation. This only works if you genuinely don't let labels affect you. If you're secretly hurt by being called selfish or difficult, they'll sense it. You have to truly internalize that these are just words, just opinions, just sounds. They have no power except what you give them. The person who can be insulted without flinching, who can be attacked without defending, is the person who controls every interaction. What is your goal here? This technique is designed specifically for the manipulators. The passive-aggressive people. The ones who wrap their insults in jokes. The ones who give constructive criticism that's really just thinly veiled attacks. The ones who undermine you with plausible deniability. These people are dangerous because they operate in the shadows of meaning. They say things that sound innocent on the surface but land like punches. And if you get upset, they immediately retreat to, "I was just joking," or "You're being too sensitive," or "I'm trying to help you." They rely on subtext, on implication, on making you feel bad while maintaining innocence. They're cowards, essentially, because they want the satisfaction of hurting you without the risk of openly attacking you. You need to drag them into the light. When someone makes a snide comment or tries to undermine you subtly, you stop the conversation. You don't let it slide. You don't laugh it off. You don't pretend you didn't notice. You look directly at them and you ask a question that cuts through all the noise and targets their motivation. What is your goal with that comment? Or, are you trying to be helpful, or are you trying to hurt me? Or, what are you hoping to accomplish by saying that? This is a direct confrontation of their strategy. You're exposing the game board. You're pulling back the curtain. You're forcing them to either admit their malice or back down. Most of the time, they'll try to retreat to plausible deniability. "I was just joking. Why are you so serious?" Don't let them. Stay completely serious. Explain the joke to me. I don't get it. What's funny about what you just said? Now they're forced to dissect their own cruelty. They have to explain why being mean is humorous. Why insulting you is entertainment. It's excruciating for them. They'll squirm. They'll look for an exit. They'll try to change the subject. Hold firm. "No, really, I want to understand. What were you trying to communicate?" By asking, "What is your goal?" you're forcing them to state their intent explicitly. And here's the thing, malicious intent sounds terrible when said out loud. It's easy to be cruel through implication. It's much harder to say, "My goal was to make you feel small," or "I wanted to embarrass you in front of everyone." If they retreat to, "I'm trying to help," you have a response for that too. It doesn't feel like help. It feels like criticism. If you genuinely want to help me, I need you to do it differently. Can you do that? Now you've set a boundary in real time. You've taught them that covert aggression doesn't work on you. That you will decode it, expose it, and reject it. Most manipulators, when exposed, will back off. They don't want direct confrontation. That's why they use passive aggression in the first place. Machiavelli said one must be a fox to recognize traps. This question is you being the fox. It's you sniffing out the trap and disarming it before your leg is caught inside. Let me walk you through some real scenarios. Scenario: at a family dinner, your aunt says, "Oh, you're wearing that? Well, it's certainly confident." Old you feels embarrassed, maybe makes a self-deprecating joke, changes clothes later, feels bad all night. New you, calmly, "What do you mean by that? What are you trying to say about my outfit?" Aunt: "Nothing. I just meant it's bold." You: "Bold as in you like it, or bold as in you think it's a mistake?" Aunt: It's not what I would choose." You: "Okay, so you don't like it. That's fine. You don't have to. Return to your food." Scenario: a colleague says in a meeting, "Well, if you'd been here last week, you'd know we already discussed this. But since you weren't, trails off with implication. Old you feels defensive. I was dealing with the client crisis, that was more urgent. New you, I wasn't here last week, that's correct. What specifically do you need me to understand? Just catch me up directly. If they continue being snide, you, I'm noticing a tone. Is there a problem with me missing that meeting? Let's address it now. Scenario, your partner says, I guess some people just don't think about others when they make decisions. Old you, are you talking about me? What did I do? I do think about others. New you, stop what you're doing. Full attention. That sounded directed at me. What decision are you referring to? Say it directly. Do you see how this works? You're refusing to engage with the subtext. You're demanding explicit communication. You're forcing them to either be honest and direct, or to back down from their veiled attack. This requires courage. It requires you to be willing to make the moment awkward. But remember this, the awkwardness belongs to them, not you. They created it by being passive-aggressive. You're just turning on the lights. If the room looks ugly when the lights come on, that's because of the mess they made. People will learn very quickly whether or not they can use subtle manipulation on you. If you consistently call it out, consistently force them to be direct, they'll stop doing it. Not because they've become better people, but because you're not an easy target anymore. You're training people how to communicate with you. Train them well. I expected better from you. Let's talk about temperature. Anger is hot. Disappointment is cold. And cold is more powerful. When you're angry at someone, you're implying they're your equal. An opponent worthy of your emotional investment. An enemy significant enough to raise your blood pressure. Anger is respect in a twisted way. It says, you have the power to affect me. Disappointment is different. Disappointment implies hierarchy. It implies that the other person was a subordinate who failed to meet a standard. That they had a bar to clear and they fell short. Disappointment comes from above, not from across. This is a high-status maneuver. It works best on people who seek your approval, or people who pride themselves on being good, competent, or trustworthy. When someone lies to you, breaks a promise, acts childishly, or betrays you in some way, your instinct might be to yell. To express your anger. To tell them exactly how much they hurt you. Don't. Yelling reveals that they got to you. It shows vulnerability. It shows they have power over your emotional state. Instead, you go cold. You look at them with a heavy, tired expression. You might sigh, just slightly, as if you're weary. And you say, I'm surprised. I expected better from you. This cuts deeper than any scream ever could. It targets their shame. Their self-image. It implies that they had a certain standing in your eyes, a certain reputation, and they just destroyed it. It positions you as the judge, the authority, the person whose opinion matters. Variations of this are even more powerful. I thought you were different. I didn't think you were the kind of person who would do this. This is disappointing. I had a much higher opinion of you. You're using their own ego against them. Most people want to be seen as good, as reliable, as better than average. You're telling them they're failing at being the person they pretend to be. You're holding up a mirror that shows them falling short of their own self-image. And then, this is crucial, you withdraw. You don't stay to argue. You don't wait for their response. You deliver the line and you leave. You walk away. You create distance. You leave them sitting with that heavy sentence hanging in the air. What happens next is fascinating. They will very often chase you. They'll try to fix it. They'll try to explain themselves. They'll try to prove to you that they are better than what they just showed you. They'll need your validation again. You've completely reversed the dynamic. Instead of you chasing them for an apology, they're chasing you for your respect. Instead of you needing something from them, they need something from you. Proof that they're still a good person in your eyes. This is the art of soft power. You don't force them to change through anger or threats. You make them want to change to regain your approval. Let me show you how this looks in practice. Situation: a friend promised to help you move, confirmed multiple times, and then simply didn't show up. No call. No text. When you finally reach them, they have some excuse. Old you. Are you kidding me? I was counting on you. Do you know how much harder that was without your help? That was so selfish. New you. Quiet, measured tone. You know what hurts? It's not that moving was harder. It's that you said you'd be there. Multiple times. I believed you. Pause. I thought you were more reliable than this. I'm really disappointed. Don't wait for response. End the call or walk away. Situation: your partner shared something you told them in confidence, something you explicitly asked them to keep private. Old you. How could you tell them that? I trusted you. Why would you do that? New you. Calm, almost sad. I told you that in confidence. You knew that. And you shared it anyway. Look at them with genuine disappointment. I thought I could trust you with things that matter to me. I guess I was wrong about that. Leave the room. Give them space to sit with it. Situation: a colleague took credit for your work in a meeting. Old you. Either say nothing because confrontation is scary, or send an angry email later. New you. Privately, after the meeting, very calm. You know I did that work. You watched me do it. And you let everyone think it was yours. Pause. Eye contact. I had respect for you. I thought you had integrity. This changes how I see you. Walk away. Don't engage further that day. The key elements that make this work. First, your tone must be genuinely disappointed, not angry. Think about how you'd sound if a child you believed in did something that truly let you down. Not rage. Sadness mixed with surprise. Second, you must be specific about what standard they failed to meet. I expected better is good. I thought you were reliable is better. I believed you had integrity is even more specific and therefore more cutting. Third, you must withdraw. Don't stay to argue or listen to excuses. The withdrawal is what creates the vacuum they'll need to fill. If you stay, you're inviting them to defend themselves, and defensive people don't feel shame. They feel justified. Fourth, and this is important, you must be willing to actually lower your opinion of them if they don't correct course. This cannot be an empty threat or a manipulation tactic. If you express disappointment and then immediately go back to treating them the same way, you've taught them that your boundaries are fake. This is a heavy weapon. It damages the relationship in the short term. The bond becomes colder, more formal, less intimate. Only use this when the relationship has already been damaged by their disrespect or betrayal. Don't use it for small mistakes or miscommunications. Reserve it for genuine violations of trust. But when used appropriately, it's incredibly effective at establishing that you have standards and you're willing to enforce them. People will think twice before crossing you again, not because they fear your anger, but because they don't want to fall in your estimation. Being respected is more sustainable than being feared. Being respected is more stable than being liked. Disappointment teaches respect. I don't care enough to argue with you about this. We've arrived at the final lesson. The nuclear option. The end of the line. Here's a truth most people learn too late. There are some arguments that cannot be won. There are some people who are committed to misunderstanding you. They're not having a conversation. They're not interested in truth or resolution or mutual understanding. They're chaos agents. Energy vampires. Narcissists who feed on conflict itself. For these people, the fight is the fuel. The argument is the point. As long as you're talking, as long as you're engaged, they're winning. Because they're consuming your time, your energy, your peace, and your mental space. They're living rent-free in your head. The ultimate Machiavellian move is to realize that your attention is the most valuable currency on earth, and you can choose to stop spending it on people who don't deserve it. When you realize the conversation has become circular, when you realize they're not listening, when you understand that nothing you say will change anything, you deploy the nuclear option. You stop. You gather your things if you need to. You look them in the eye, completely devoid of emotion. Not angry. Not sad. Not frustrated. Just done. Finished. Empty. And you say, you can believe whatever you want. I don't care enough to argue with you about this. And then you leave. You walk away. You hang up the phone. You close the laptop. You end the interaction. Or even shorter, even more final. You're right. I'm done. Let me be very clear about what you're communicating here. You are not saying, I give up because you defeated me. You are saying, you are not worth the effort. This conversation, this conflict, you yourself are not significant enough to warrant any more of my time or energy. You are devaluing them to zero. For a person who seeks attention, who needs to dominate, who feeds on conflict, this is psychological death. This is the one thing they cannot counter. They can argue against your points. They can twist your words. They can escalate the conflict. But they cannot argue against your absence. They cannot fight someone who's not there. They will scream at your back. They will try desperately to provoke you into turning around. Oh, so you're running away? You can't handle the truth? You're just going to leave. Keep walking. Do not turn around. Do not respond. Not even with a glance. You're a coward. You know I'm right. Keep walking. Silence. Your absence speaks louder than any words ever could. Fine. Leave. See if I care. Keep walking. Your silence as you walk away is the loudest statement they will ever hear from you. It says, I control access to me. I am the gatekeeper of my own time and energy. When you disrespect the sanctuary of my peace, you are evicted. No trial. No second chances. Just gone. This creates a vacuum that they cannot fill. They're left alone with their anger, their arguments, their need for conflict. And that anger has nowhere to go except back inside themselves. They poison themselves while you're already gone, already moved on, already thinking about something else. You are free. They are trapped in the conflict they created. Now, let me address something important. Some people will tell you this is avoidant. That healthy communication requires staying and working through things. And there's truth to that, in relationships that are fundamentally healthy. But we're not talking about healthy disagreements with people who respect you. We're talking about toxic people. Manipulators. People who have proven through repeated behavior that they're not interested in resolution. People who violate your boundaries, disrespect your time, and refuse to engage in good faith. With these people, staying is not noble. Staying is self-destruction. Staying is volunteering to be drained. The healthiest thing you can do is remove yourself from the equation entirely. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, when one of the two must be lacking." In this context, feared means respected. It means they know you have lines they cannot cross. They know you have self-control they don't have. They know you cannot be bullied, baited, or broken. Most importantly, they know that if they push too hard, you will not scream. You will not argue. You will simply vanish. You will become unreachable. And that is a power that money cannot buy, that status cannot grant, that no amount of force can overcome. The person who can walk away from a fight has already won the fight. We've reached the end of this journey together. You now possess 7 verbal techniques that can fundamentally change how you navigate conflict. 7 tools that can protect your peace, establish your boundaries, and command respect. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. The question is, what will you do with this information? Will you go back to your old patterns? Will you continue letting people disrespect you, drain you, manipulate you? Will you keep losing sleep over arguments, replaying conversations, wishing you'd said something different? Or will you step into something new? Will you become the person who doesn't get shaken? The person who responds instead of reacts? The person who walks away from chaos with their peace intact? The choice is yours. It always has been. But now you have the tools. Remember Machiavelli's core insight: the world is not kind to the weak. It's not fair. It's not designed to protect you. You must protect yourself. You must establish your own boundaries. You must enforce your own standards. Not with violence. Not with cruelty. But with unshakable self-control and the willingness to walk away from anyone or anything that doesn't serve you. This is not about becoming cold or heartless. This is about becoming sovereign over your own life. About reclaiming your power from the people who've been using your emotions against you. Be kind when kindness is appropriate. Be warm with people who deserve your warmth. Be generous with those who appreciate your generosity. But with those who mistake your kindness for weakness, who see your warmth as an opening to exploit, who take your generosity and demand more. With them, be the mountain. Be unmovable. Be done. Your peace is not negotiable. Your self-respect is not for sale. Your time and energy are finite and precious. Protect them like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships and interactions. And the quality of your relationships is determined by the boundaries you set and enforce. You now know how to set those boundaries. You now know how to enforce them. You now know how to end arguments before they drain you. The question is, will you use what you know? Step out of the noise. Step into the cold. Step into your power. You are not a leaf in the wind anymore. You are the mountain. Unshaken. Unmoved. In control. This is your transformation. This is your moment. Take it.